Our legends tell about a boy that was the son of the sun and a crow woman. And one day, this young crow woman went looking for firewood with her mother-in-law. And they came to a cottonwood tree, and it was a tall cottonwood tree, and there was a huge porcupine at the top of the cottonwood. And in those days, whenever they found a porcupine, they would hit him on the nose and knock him unconscious, and then take the quills that they needed for embroidery, for crafts. And so this young lady wanted this porcupine, so she tied up her skirt and started climbing the cottonwood tree. She was not aware that the cottonwood was growing taller and taller all the time she was climbing it. And the mother-in-law was trying to tell her to climb down, but she was so intent on capturing this porcupine that she kept climbing, and the porcupine was climbing also, and it was just out of her reach all the time. And then finally, without realizing it, the cottonwood went into the sky, and there was a hole in the sky, and it was a green verdant land in where they landed, and it was a nice valley with a nice stream and trees. And in the distance she saw a white teepee. She looked around and she decided to go to this teepee. And when she got to the teepee, she announced that she was at the door, and there was a woman inside with a pleasant voice. And the voice inside told her to enter the teepee. So this young lady entered the teepee, and here she was surprised that the teepee was nicely laid out with all sorts of possessions and material goods. This lady was sitting by the fire in the middle of the teepee, and she said, "I've been waiting for you for a long time. Oh, I knew you were coming, but you are here, and I'm glad that you finally arrived." And she said, "There is your wedding dress," and it was laid on a bed. "Your wedding dress is ready, and your moccasins, and everything is ready for you." The lady didn't hesitate. She started putting on the clothes, and so the lady, the woman in the teepee, made her comfortable. And while they were waiting, the lady said, "Your husband is out. He goes out early in the morning, and then he doesn't come back until night, until sunset. So we have to wait for him. When he comes back, he'll show us what to do, and he'll tell us what to do. And we've been waiting for you for a long time." So they waited for the husband, and it was a nice-looking young man that came in at sunset. And the woman explained that was her son, and the woman was the moon. The woman that was waiting in a teepee was the moon, and the young man that came in was the sun. And so they became man and wife. The crow woman became the wife of the sun. And so before he would leave, he would tell her what not to do and what to do during the daytime. She said, "You can go anywhere you want to on this land, and nothing will hurt you. Nothing will bother you. You can go wherever you want to go and do what you want to do. But if you see a buffalo chip, an old buffalo chip, do not bother it. Do not tear it from where it is. That's the only thing that you're not supposed to do." And so this woman stayed, and finally she had a little boy. She had a little boy, and the little boy grew up, and the father made toys for him, and the boy would play with it all day, and he would play with the other animals. and the birds would come and talk to him. So he went around and he was happy. It was a nice place to grow up, and he was happy for a while. But then one day the father said, "You are big enough now to have an arrow, bow, and I will make you a bow and arrow, and you can shoot whatever you want to, but never shoot at the meadowlarks, because the meadowlarks are gossips. They like to talk about people, and they'll talk behind your back, and they'll give you a bad reputation. So stay away from them. And then when you try to stay away from them, they'll bother you. But if they bother you, don't look at them. Don't pay any attention to them." So when he said this, the boy went out, and sure enough, a meadowlark came and tried to scratch his face. And the boy avoided him at first, but then he finally got angry and shot at the meadowlark and almost killed him. He shot one tail off of the meadowlark. And the meadowlark went by and stopped at a tree, and he said, "You're good for nothing, little boy. You don't belong here. You're not one of us. Why don't you go home? You don't belong here." And the little boy tried to avoid him, but he would do this all day long. He would say, "You don't belong here. Go home. Go home to your people. You're not one of us." So finally the boy was upset. He was upset, and so he went home. He would usually go home about sunset, but he went home early this day, and then he went to his bed and lay down, and would not say anything or eat or do anything, and he laid on his bed. And so the mother was trying to make him eat something or do something, but he wouldn't talk to him. So finally they coaxed him into telling what was bothering him, and he said, "Today I went out and a meadowlark started bothering me, and I tried to avoid him, but he scratched my face, and I finally shot at him, and I shot one of his tail. And so he started saying things about me. He said, 'You don't belong here. You should go home. You're not one of us.' And so because he was so sad, his mother also became sad, and he started getting lonesome for his people. So one day when the little boy went out, his mother went with him, and then they looked around and found a buffalo chip. And the lady said, "Your father never told me never to look under what is under a buffalo chip, but we'll do it today and see what happens." And so they opened up the buffalo chip, and there was a hole in the sky, and they could look down and they could see the people down there, down below. And the people it was a large camp, and the people were going around, and they were singing, and some were dancing, and the young ladies were playing the ball game. They were kicking a ball, and some of them were playing the blanket game. They would have somebody stand on a blanket, and they would toss him up. And then the young men were having a sham battle. They were running back and forth, fighting each other, and they seemed to be having a good time. So now the woman, the mother, became more lonely. She wanted to go home. She looked at it for a long time, and then they went home. And now the boy and the mother were both sad and lonesome, and they didn't do anything. They didn't eat anything, and they just lay down on their bed. So the evening when the son came home, he went in and he saw what happened, and he knew immediately that they had opened a buffalo chip. And he said, "Woman, you did what I told you not to do. Now it's impossible for you to live here with us. Now I must send you home." And he said, "I will go out and kill 7 buffalo bulls, and I want you to go out and skin them, butcher them and skin them, and they have they have sinews on the buffalo. So go and get all the sinew you can from these buffalo, and I'll make a rope for it, and then I'll send you down through the hole in that buffalo chip. And so he went out that day, and the woman went out and skinned all the buffalo bulls and took all the sinew that she thought that she knew about. And when the son came back, he made a rope. He made a rope from all the sinew from the buffalo bulls. But unknown to the man knew it, but because the woman made a mistake, he didn't tell her that she forgot about the sinews on the neck. She didn't take the sinews from the neck, so when he made the rope, he tied it to the woman, and the woman was carrying her son, and he said, I'll let you down. I'll let you down on this rope, and then you can go home. But he knew that the rope was going to be short, so he let her down through the hole. Keep the rope kept going, and then finally ran out of rope, and they were still not high above the earth. And so the son took a big rock, and then he threw it down, and he told the rock to kill the woman. And then when she fell, the boy would land on his mother, and that would prevent him from being killed. So he threw the rock down and hit the woman on the head, and the woman was killed. But the little boy was alive. And so he stayed by his mother for a while, crawled around where his mother was. And finally he was hungry, so he started searching, looking around to try to find something to eat. And when he looked around, he found a garden. And there was a lot of corn and pumpkins and squash, all sorts of things that he could eat. So he tore up some of the corn and ate it, and then he went back to where her mother lay where she fell. And unknown to them, this garden, the owner of this garden was a woman called a Red Woman, because she had red hair and she had a lot of energy and power, and I guess she would be called a witch, and she was a cannibal. She would eat people. And so when she went to check her garden, she found little footsteps, and she found where somebody had torn up her corn. And so she went back, and she was wondering about it, and she became frightened, and he knew that it was a powerful being that did this. So she went home, and the next day she came back, and now the boy came back and tore up some of the pumpkins. And she said, well, there is something going on here that is beyond me, but I will find out what it is. So she made a doll, and then she made a bow and arrow, some arrows, and she left it at the garden. And then the boy came back and picked up the doll, but threw it away. And then he picked up the bows and arrows and started shooting the pumpkins and the squash. And then when he left, the next day the old woman came back, and she knew that it was a boy. And now she was scared, she was frightened. I think this is some powerful being that has come to do harm to me. But I will pretend to be a friend, but I will try to find a way to destroy him. So she waited at the garden, and when the little boy came, she got up and made friends with him. And he said, little boy, are you hungry? And so when the little boy said he was hungry, she took her home to her teepee. And she had a big kettle that was on the fire, and she always had a lot of meat on the fire. And so they ate a lot that evening. They ate most of the meat in soup, And then when they were done, the woman took the soup and hid it behind the teepee lining. And so they went to sleep. And the next morning, the woman went out. She said, I have some chores to do. Yeah, stay here and don't go anyplace. And she was using reverse psychology. She knew what, if she said, don't do this, the boy would go ahead and do it. So she said, don't go anyplace. You can go to the garden, but don't go anyplace else, and stay in the teepee. Stay near the teepee and don't go anyplace. So the old red woman left that day, and the little boy started playing around the teepee. And then when he got hungry, he came back and looked behind the teepee lining for the soup, rest of the soup, but the soup was empty. The soup was empty, and he was wondering what happened to it. And then he waited for the old lady, and then when she came back, she said, I wanted to eat some of that soup, but it's all gone. Somebody ate it. And old red woman said, don't worry about it. It's all right. I'll make some more soup. And so they ate more soup that day again, and the leftovers the old woman took behind the teepee lining and left it there. And so again, the next day, the old woman left, and she said, don't go anyplace, stay here, and don't go anyplace else. But the little boy started wandering around. He went towards the garden and came back, and again he went after the soup, and the soup was empty again. And he said, there is something that is eating up our soup. I will find out who it is, what it is, what's eating our soup. And unknown to the little boy, the old red woman's husband was a dinosaur. And he would hide behind the teepee lining and eat up the soup. So when the little boy started hiding behind the teepee lining, and here the dinosaur came, and he tried to eat the soup, and the little boy killed him. The son's son killed the dinosaur. And he left him in front of the teepee and waited for the old lady to come. And when the old lady came back, she immediately saw that her husband had been killed. It was laying in front of the teepee. And the little boy jumped up and he said, Grandmother, I finally found out who was eating our soup, and I killed him. And the grandmother started crying. She said, little boy, you have done wrong. You killed your grandfather. That is my husband. And so after that, now old lady was really worried, old red woman. She said, I have to get rid of this little boy, or else he'll kill me. He'll kill me, and so I must find a way to destroy him. So every day before she would go out, she would tell the little boy where something was dangerous. She would say, don't go to this place because there's a dangerous being there. If you go there, he will destroy you and eat you. And the little boy would say, Grandmother, I will never go there. I don't know where it is. Tell me where it is so that I won't be going there. And the old red woman would give explicit instructions how to get to this evil place. And the little boy would wait for old red woman to leave. And then as soon as she left, she would grab a long teepee pole, and he would grab his bows and arrows, and then go where he was not supposed to go, and he would destroy this awful being that was there. And he destroyed all the monsters that were living at the time, and it was around here in the Yellowstone Park that he destroyed all these beings and turned them into natural objects.